all children are of utmost importance to Christ. Christ saw these children, these infants, as not a hindrance or a nuisance or less than adults. He saw them with utmost importance. And we're called and challenged to say that if Jesus says that these children are of utmost importance to him, that gives me directions on how I should see all children. The second thing I would say is this. Gospel engagement with children is driven by God's word. Because this was important to Christ, it should be important to us. Because God valued the children of all ages and showed compassion and love and consideration to them, this is now our metric as a church on how we should see all children. That gives us a metric to show where we should put priorities and attention and how we treat children within our covenant community and within our society. We stand up for the care of children of all ages, of all sizes, of all races, of all backgrounds. We care about babies from conception through childhood. Because Christ loved and cared for children, we stand against murder, abusive acts, abandonment, and predators that take advantage of children. We have to. They are the defenseless within our society. And any practice that harms, destroys, manipulates, or takes advantage of children, we must stand against it as the church. James 1:27 tells us that religion that is pure and undefiled before God is that we visit orphans and the widows in their affliction. We show our faith by these practices. Folks, these children have been given to us for the purpose of sharing the gospel with them, to living out the gospel with them, and to showing them the love of Christ, to teach them about Jesus. We are called, all of us, no matter what our stage of life is, to be a mentor and a representative of being a faithful follower of Christ to these children. We understand the importance of the role of the ministries that take place here with preschool, children, youth, and beyond. And so the third thing I would say is this, is that with parents, and I would say grandparents, with guardians, to bring your children to Jesus, not just to church. We don't want the children just to know a lot about God. We just don't want them to just be aware of what God has done in the past, but we want to make disciples. This is the Great Commission, and children as part of our community in our covenant family, but also a part of our individual families, our role is to invest in these children, to share about the goodness of God, and to be disciple makers of our children. It's not so that we can just leave it to the professionals. The idea is that we engage in this together so that we bring together the effort of the home and our church community into a cohesive effort and strategy to reach these young souls. You know, in the back, some of you might think, and maybe even envision, that right now it's just basically a child care program back there. You might even see it as just changing diapers or playing games or listening to loud music or just crazy things happening so that we can have an undisturbed, quiet moment here. But when it comes down to this, what's taking place back there, not only do we celebrate it and we are thankful for it, but it is ministry. It's not just a fill gap of making this work a little bit better. It's ministry. It's serving. But we also were reminded that the idea, and this is Old Testament, New Testament on, and that is that the idea of Jesus Christ being shared as part of a family setup from generation to generation. Psalm 78, verses 5 through 7, says, He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which He commanded our fathers to teach their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell their children, so that they could set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. This passage gives us an encouragement as guardians, as parents, as grandparents over these children to constantly be speaking into them life. It's not about programs or cool environments or personalities. It's moms, dads, grandparents living out their faith, being gospel-driven, biblically living, Christ-centered in our relationships with one another, with the children in our midst. Statistics will tell us that families that live out their faith in front of their children are likely to remain faithful as those children grow into adults. The take home would be this. Childlike humility leads to Christ-like holiness. See, in my brokenness, in my pain, in my struggles, I don't point them to look at me as being the perfect example. What I do is I point them to Christ as being the perfect example.